Hello, hello, good morning. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Sunday 10 a.m. technique at the Weekend in Whistler online crop. I'm just getting my camera adjusted so that we can get a good look at the project we're going to be working on today. And yeah, I find that the setting up the camera is a lot different from how it works with Facebook. So that's always a bit of a got to play around with it for a minute when we first get started. Okay, so we are going to be creating today using the Skylark collection. Now that is a Bring Back My Pack collection from close to my heart, and it has been revamped for current colors. So if you had the Skylark collection back in the day when it was first available, you will recognize some of the motifs and icons and things, but it has the new colors. So we've got some limeade going on in here. We've got some shortbread, all that fun stuff. And it's a really pretty collection. I didn't pull out the pattern papers, but I could. So you're going to get 6 sheets. There's this one that's lovely and bright and vibrant with a beautiful sort of distressed pattern and some words along the zip strip. The back side is this lovely lagoon stripe. Then there is also this beautiful pattern paper that's sort of like it almost looks like tile work with a nice arrow zip strip. And then the back side is this beautiful number with all sorts of skylarks on it. And then the last piece is actually one that I have cut up. So you're not going to get a good view of it, but it's this fun limeade, stripy, zigzaggy, and it has some extra bits and bobs on it. Let me flip it over so you can see. This side has a grid, and it's got the birds on a wire and some details here as well. So that's kind of the paper collection. So it's very vintage, kind of romantic. There's also a stamp set that you can get with this collection. And this stamp set, if you have the original, the stamp set is a repeat of that. So if you've already got it, you don't need to purchase that. But lots of fun things. So let me move this out of the way. And there's various scrapbooking and card making and different sorts of projects that they have, different bundles that you can purchase. But that's Bring Back My Pack. So if you go in the promotions area on the website, you'll see that Bring Back My Pack Skylark. But this morning, we are going to be creating a card holder for gift giving. It was a request from one of the crafty ladies, Samantha. Hey, Samantha. And so we are going to be creating that today. So if you are somebody who likes to make sets of cards and give them as gifts to people, this is going to be something that you'll want to take note of. It's also fun for creating a little gift box, so it doesn't have to be for cards, but it's just a fun technique. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching on replay, you can say replay. I see Dawn is here watching. Good morning, Dawn. Alrighty, so we are going to start out with a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock. And I'm just going to bring in the pieces here. So this was a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock, and I'm using White Daisy just, just because. I could have picked a color, but I went with White Daisy. And you're going to take your 12 by 12 piece of White Daisy, and you're going to cut 2 pieces out of it. So you're going to have a 10.5 by 12, and then you're going to have a 1.5 by 12. So this one, you're not going to get rid of, you're going to save it. It's going to create the belly band for our box. So we're just going to set that aside. And then we're going to start out with our 10.5 by 12 piece of cardstock. We're going to bring in our ruler and our bone folder, and we're going to make sure that we're lined up nice and neat on our Versamat because we're going to do some scoring to create this box. So along our 10.5 inch side, we're going to score at 1 inch. So just line ourselves up. We're going to score at 2 inches. All the way across. Then we're going to jump over to 8.5. 8.5. And 9.5. Super easy. Not hard. Whoops, that wiggled on me. Now, if you don't like doing 8.5 and 9.5, you can just rotate your paper and do the 1 inch and 2 inch again, because that's all it is. It's 1 inch in and 2 inches in. Now we're going to turn around to our 12-inch side. Maybe I'll bump it up here. I think the bottom of my Versamat is not maybe completely showing on the video. So along our 12-inch side, we're going to score at 3 1/4. So 3 1/4, like that. 4 1/4. Oh, that's 4.5. We want 4 1/4. 4 1/4. And 8 3/4. And I will write all these measurements down. So don't worry if you miss anything. When I post the photo and the products I used at the bottom, I'll put the dimensions and it'll include the scoring. So that was 8 3/4. Then we're going to do 9 3/4. Okay. So along that 12-inch side, we scored at 3 1/4, 4 1/4, 8 3/4, and 9 3/4. All right. Now we need to do some cutting. And I don't know if you can see my score lines very well or not, but they're there. So actually, before we do the cutting, let's do some folding. So along this 12-inch side, we're going to fold our first score line. We're going to make sure it's nice and even. And we're going to bring in our bone folder. Actually, I'm scoring the wrong way. That's why it's not scoring very well. You always fold with the bump side to the inside, right? Rule number 1, bump side to the inside. Folds much better that way. See how when I did it the first way, it was kind of over here? When you fold it with the bump side to the inside, it gets rid of that There we go. Crease that. You can also use the handle of your scissors to do the creasing. So you can see, maybe, it's really, really close to the camera. We're creating the little end of our box this way. Okay? And then we're going to flip over to the other side. And we're going to go along our score line. Make sure it's nice and straight. Crease that down. And there we go. This white daisy is nice and thick, so it's good for doing things like this. That's one of the other reasons I chose the white daisy. Okay, now I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to do my score lines the other way. I find the easiest way to crease on score lines, especially the way I do my score lines, where I'm not pushing down into the groove of a scoreboard, is that I roll my paper, and then I kind of bend it back onto where that crease line is. The score line, and that makes it come down into a crease. So if you ever have trouble kind of getting your score lines to fold, then just roll your paper over, go past where the score line is, and then as you push down, roll it back towards that score line. And the paper has a memory, so it will remember that it got scored there, and it will just kind of fall into place, which is good to do. It's not so much of a thing with pattern paper, but when you're working with really thick cardstock like this is, then sometimes you need that little extra help. So all you do is just lift it up, go past the score line, put your hands flat, and then roll it back down until it pops out on that score line. All right, So now we have creased all of our lines, and you will notice that there's sort of a center panel, then there's a wider panel, and then a smaller panel. This one over here is only 2¼ inches, just a little bit of a panel. Okay, and so what we want to do is we need to remove some pieces. So over here on this widest panel, we are going to remove this whole section. So from that second score line in from this side, oops, I'm writing on it now, and the second score line from this side, we're going to remove this whole panel. And then we're going to come across to the other side. We're going to do the same thing. So here's our, I'm kind of doing it inside so I don't have to erase pencil lines later. We're going to remove this whole section here. So there's like a long rectangle, and 2 squares. Same thing on this side. Long rectangle, and 2 squares. Those are coming off. And then over here, we want to do just these 2 rectangles on the end. Okay, so we've just got these 2 scored rectangles, and then down here, these 2 scored rectangles. All right, these 2 little squares are staying. That's part of how we get our everything put together. So let's take our scissors. If you have a trimmer that you can safely trim in on these, then you could do that. I'm just going to use my scissors because they're here and they're handy, and my trimmer doesn't do that kind of stuff. So we're taking out those 2 rectangles on the end. I'm actually having trouble seeing my score line. If you wonder why I'm fiddling around, I got to kind of move it this way and that way. I got bright lights that get rid of shadows. It's actually good to have shadows when you're trying to cut on score lines. It helps you find them. All right, there we go. And then coming up from this end. So it's the one that has the biggest, widest area at the end that you're going to cut off both rectangles and the little squares that were created with the score lines. There we go. And the last one. Not the last cutting thing, but the last piece we're removing. Okay, so we've taken those 4 pieces away. And then what we need to do is down here where we left those 2 boxes on either side, we're actually going to trim the score line coming from this edge down to where this second score line is. So we're creating a nice little tab with those 2 squares. We're not cutting it off, we're just cutting down that score line just till where it intersects with that second score line from the edge. So again, a little tap. Okay, so if we look at it like this, this is how it's going to fold up. We are going to push these 2 tabs in, and we're going to lift this bottom up and adhere those 2 tabs on the inside of our box like that. Then these 2 are going to come over and we're going to lift this up. And that's going to create our box. But we want to make it look a little prettier. So what we can do is we can do some corner rounding. Now, if you have a corner rounder and you are talented with the use of a corner rounder, you can use that. But I am not talented with the use of a corner rounder. So the corners that I'm going to round with my scissors are the 2 corners here on the shallow tab end where we have our 2 flappies. So just these 2 corners. Then I'm going to do these 2 corners right here on our outside flaps. And then I'm going to do these 2 corners way up here at the top. Okay, so we're doing 6 corners. So let's do the 3 on the right hand side first. Now, if you have a corner rounder, go ahead and use it. I'm just going to use my scissors. So there, we've rounded that one. Now we're going to jump up to this tab and round that. And then we're going to go to the top flap. And we're going to round that. You don't have to do this step. It just looks nice. That's all. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to go to the top flap. And we're going to do the top of this side flap. Like so. And then we're going to do our bottom flap. Oops. Works better when you do it all in one fell swoop. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Okay, so we've rounded our corners. Now we need to apply some adhesive. Let me grab my adhesive. Oh, there it is. It is literally sitting right here. And I'm looking around for it. Okay, now we need to put adhesive in two places. We're going to put some adhesive on the outside of this flap. So I'm just going to bend it in and then add some adhesive to it. And I'm just going to do a couple strips of this. You could use liquid glue. You could use red tape. You could use whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and use this. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to fold in our little flap here, just with these two little squares. And we're going to put some adhesive on there. Nice. And then the last place we need to put adhesive is on this flap here down at the bottom. I keep turning it around on you. But what we need to keep in mind is that we're only going to go onto this little side. So we're going, it comes 1 inch in. So if we open this up, and I like to turn it sideways, line it up on my Versamat, and I can see where 1 inch from the edge is, and I'm going to make sure that my adhesive doesn't go farther than 1 inch in. I'm just going to put a couple strips. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side of the flap here. I'm going to line it up on my Versamat. Take note where 1 inch in is. And you're only adding adhesive down to the score line, or across to the score line, however you want to look at it. So we've got adhesive here and here, no farther than 1 inch in. And we've got adhesive on these two flaps. That's it. That's all we need to put this together. But we need to do our decorating, and it is much easier to decorate something while it's laying flat, don't you think? And so I have cut some pieces of pattern paper to decorate this, and using that Skylark collection, and of course the one that I said I had chopped up, was this nice sort of zigzaggy, it almost is reminiscent of feathers in the way that the lines are. And this piece is 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. Now all of these pieces that are going to cover the spaces down this center panel are all going to be the same width. So the smart way to cut this is to cut a 6 1/4 inch strip off of your 12 by 12 paper, and then cut all of the increments that you need to fill in the spaces. So this is 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. We're just going to go ahead and put some adhesive on that. Now you could do corner rounding, you could do edge inking, you could do any number of things. You could stamp on this. You could even do 2 layers if you wanted. You could take this measurement and put a second layer of cardstock and then a piece of pattern paper a little bit smaller. I am keeping it simple because this is more about showing you how to build the box than how to decorate it. So I'm keeping it simple. So this is 6 1/4 by 4 1/4, and we're going to just center it here on this largest panel, which is the back of our box. And then I have 2 strips that are 6, well, I have 2 strips, I didn't pick them both up, that are 6 1/4 by 3/4 of an inch, and those are going to go in the 1 inch space at the top and the bottom of the box. So let's add some adhesive to these. So these are 6 1/4 by 3/4 of an inch, and we want 2 of them. The other good thing about cutting one long strip and then cutting all your increments is that if you use a pattern paper, say like a floral or a snowflake or a birthday pattern, if you cut them, think about how you want to cut them. If you cut them and then stick them on that way, like cut this dimension, then the 3/4, then this one, then the 3/4, then this one, your pattern will be continuous. It's also important because part of this is going to fold over. If you have a design that depends on being right way up, that might not be the best pattern for this kind of design, right? Either that or you're going to have to flip a couple pieces of the pattern so that it's the right way up. So just keep that in mind. I picked a pattern that was good no matter which direction I put it. But you'll notice I am keeping it in line so that the stripes are all the same, because there's a really narrow one over here and a slightly larger one over there. And so by keeping it this way, it looks a little more consistent all the way around my box. And then for our top flap, we've got this piece. Now you remember we rounded those corners. So if you've got your corner rounder, you're going to want to round these 2 top points on this pattern paper as well. Or if you're like me and you're using your scissors, grab your scissors and round your corner so that it matches. Matchy, matchy. There we go. All the little bitties. And then we can add our adhesive on here. And this is the front flap, this larger one. Oh, look at that, running out of adhesive. I knew that was going to happen soon. There we go. All right, let's put that one in recycling and grab another roll. It'll be crinkly for a second here. Bear with me. There we go. Ready to go. And we'll take our backing off. And then I'm going to scooch this down so I can see what I'm doing. Center that on our front flap. And then down here, we've got one last piece. I bet I didn't give you the size for this one. This one was 6 1/4 by 3 inches. And now this last one that's going on this bottom piece is 6 1/4 by 2 inches. This one was 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. I think I said 6 1/2. And again, we're going to round. So we're going to round these 2 bottom corners so that it matches. Of course, I'm not using a rounder, so my rounds never quite match, but that's all right with me. Let's find the end of our adhesive so we can stick some glue on. So how many of you give cards as gifts? Is that something you have done in the past or have thought about doing in the future? It would also be a fun idea if you're putting sets together for, say, a craft show or something, and you wanted to have a nice way for people to give the gift if they were giving it to somebody, or even just to purchase it for themselves. So there we go. We've got all of our center ones done. Now we also want to add some pattern here on the sides. And so for that, I have a piece times 2 of 4 1/4, 3 1/4, 3/4. I'm trying to read it and my brain is jumping. 3/4 of an inch by 4 1/4. And because my pattern is got distinct lines, I didn't cut them this way. I cut them this way. And so you have to kind of use your scrappy bits for that. If you don't care which direction your pattern goes, or if it's a pattern that doesn't matter, then you can cut it any way you want. So these were 3/4 by 4 1/4. And again, I will post all the measurements. So we're going to stick this on, center it in that panel. I like how fresh this limeade color is. My previous favorite green was avocado, which was now retired. Well, one of my favorite greens. I don't know. I have a lot of favorite colors, apparently, besides blue. But I really liked avocado. And limeade is as close to avocado as any of the other colors are. And it's nice. It's very fresh, very clean looking color. There we go. Okay, now it's the moment of truth. We are going to flip this back over to the inside. Now, if you wanted, you could add pattern paper to the inside of the flap, to the inside of the box. I wouldn't necessarily do all the sides and everything, but if you wanted a little extra pattern in there to make it look, you know, super luxe, then you could absolutely go ahead and do that. Our first thing we want to do is to fold in our sides and remove the backing. You can either do them at the same time or one at a time. I'm going to make attempts to remove the backing off of them at the same time and hope that I don't get it stuck to places that it shouldn't be stuck. What do you think? What are the odds? So what we want to do is we want to lift up. This is going to be hard for you to see. I like to do it this way. I like to lift up the back so that it makes it nice and perpendicular, and you push it right against that piece, and then you're going to fold in the side, and because you've lifted it up, the bottom of this side is also touching your Versamat, and that's going to help you get a nice, just fold that back so you can see, that's going to get you a nice 90-degree corner because you're going up against your Versamat, and as long as you cut those lines as straight as you could, that will help. So again, we're taking our little tab that's got the adhesive on this side, we're standing up our back, pushing our side up to it, and then sticking our tab down, making sure it's nice and sealed. Okay, so now we've got those two pieces. The next is to adhere this to these two flaps. So again, we're just going to take the backing off. You can decide if you want to do it one at a time or two at a time. I'm going to try two at a time. See how good that is. Sometimes what helps is to just tuck these side tabs in nice and tucked, and that way they won't be touching the glue as much. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stand it up so that I can kind of watch this corner here and make sure that it lines up, and then stick it down. And then we're going to come to this side, and I'm just watching to see that the edge of this and the edge of this line up nice and straight. That's all I'm looking for. Don't want it wandering. And then we stick it down, and you can even lay it down this way. Stick your hand inside and give that a nice good push. Make sure it's all stuck down. And then our front flap just folds right around like that. And that is our box put together. Now we need to create a belly band for our box. And remember, I said we were going to keep this 1.5 inch strip from the original sheet of 12 by 12 cardstock. I've also got the zip strip that came off of this piece of pattern paper, and it's a really kind of fun pattern. Sort of reminds me of lace almost. And so I'm going to go ahead and stick this on there right down the center. Now this is a wide belly band, so you could obviously do more decorating than just a zip strip. Okay, I get that. I'm keeping it simple today. So we're going to stick this on. And I find the easiest way to do this is to line my belly band up on my Versamat, because I want to keep this zip strip in the center. And then I kind of stick it down at one end in the center. This is 1.5 inch belly band, and my zip strip is 1/2 inch. So if I put it right in the middle at 1/2 inch in, That should keep it straight. And then just stick it down. Okay? Now all we need to do is wrap it around our box. I could score it. So you could figure out what the score lines would be, but I am just going to start about 1/2 inch above my flap and get to this one and just kind of crease it. I find if I score a belly band as opposed to just wrapping it around, it tends to be too tight. And then it's hard to get on and off. And you don't want your belly band to be hard to get on and off. Then I'm going to wrap it around and I'm not creasing it hard. I'm just running my fingers across it to create a bend. We're bending more than creasing. And we come all the way around. And at this point, you kind of want to bring it to the front to make sure you're going in a straight line. But then you can stick it down and give it a little crease. And then come around to the front and give it a little crease. And I always think that belly bands are called belly bands because they're like putting a belt on something. And if you've ever gone anywhere and eaten while wearing a belt, you will know that sometimes you need to adjust your belt. So when I put belly bands on something, I never make it as tight as it can possibly be, because once I put cards and envelopes in here, it might, it's like going to the buffet. It might get a little bigger. So sometimes what I do is I actually back it off just a little bit. Could be, a 1/16 of an inch. Just back it off a little bit. And that will help with that sort of expandability factor. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a strip of adhesive right on the end of this piece of the belly band. And then we're going to put a strip on the inside of this piece of the belly band. We're going to make sure those are stuck down. We're going to remove the backings like so. And then we're going to wrap them around, making sure it all lines up. We're going to do that little trick where we kind of back it off a tiny smidge, and then we're going to stick it down. Okay? And now our belly band, it's going to hold the box closed. It's not going to fall off, but it is going to allow us to be able to slide it on and off with ease so that we're not, working too hard. Working hard or hardly working. So let's open up our box and let's give it a try. Let me see. I've got cards sitting here. Ooh, this one was even made with this collection. We've got 1, we've got 2, and these are actually ones that have some dimension to them. Then we've got those cards that we made the other day, and there's foam tape on that one. There's, just making sure I'm not smushing anything, 3, 4, this one's got foam tape, 5, this one's got lots of folds, 6. So there are 6 cards, and there's 1 envelope. I didn't grab my envelopes. 1. Go. Got my bin full of envelopes. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're just going to see how the sizing is with 6 cards and 6 envelopes. Okay. So we can tuck those all in and pop them in. Now you remember I said that we've got some dimension happening there. And those 6 cards and 6 envelopes comfortably fit in there. If I didn't have, they all have dimension. If I had cards that were much flatter, I could put 8, maybe 10 cards in there. I wouldn't maybe do a dozen, but you could get quite a few cards in. And it closes nice, like nothing's bulging. And then we put our belly band on. This way. Which way? This way. Put our belly band back on, if I can line myself up. Slide it on, and then let's decorate this. And I really liked, from the sticker sheet, I really liked this nice round Skylark here with this pretty fancy sort of geometric border. So I'm going to take it off. And then I got a piece of toffee cardstock that I cut with my 2.5 inch circles, thin cuts. Remember, I was telling you about my Fave Circles Thin Cuts. And I'm just going to center that on there. Like so. Now again, I'm keeping this decoration simple, right? And then we're going to go ahead and stick that on there. And I'm going to actually use some foam tape for this. Just some 3D foam tape. And I can't go wider than 1.5 inches. So we'll get 2 strips of foam tape. And I want it to cover my seam there, but I kind of also want it to come down past the flap because I think that looks nice. So we're going to go ahead and stick those 2 pieces of foam tape on there using our circle as a guide as to where to put it. And then we can just stick them on there, centered from side to side. How cute is that? A nice way to share a lovely set of cards. And we've got the pattern going all the way around. You could even mix and match your pattern. Again, if you wanted to do layers of patterning on here, you could always do this size as a cardstock, a contrasting color. And then you could add pattern paper that's, again, just a little bit smaller to create some layers. But I thought, you know what? We don't need so many layers. And then, of course, it opens up. We started with our 12 by 12 piece of white daisy cardstock and just took off the amount we needed for our belly band, folded it all up, glued it in only 3 places, and, 4 places, and then holds lovely 6-dimensional cards easily, and a nice way to present a gift. Even if you weren't gifting cards, you could put another little item in there. You could put a package of chocolates or something in there. Super cute. And 1 piece of cardstock. Some pattern paper. Good to go. All right, I hope you enjoyed seeing that card holder for gift giving come together. And if you make one, be sure to take a photo of it and pop it in the comments where I post the picture. And because we would all love to see it and be inspired by your creation. All right, we'll see you again soon. Don't forget, Chat and Craft at 11:30. Toodaloo. Bye.